Hi, everybody. Welcome to the National Parents Union presents Speak Your Truth with yours truly, Vivett Dukes. It's wonderful to be here. I missed you all on Monday. My apologies. Wi-Fi, everything was just a mess. So that's on me, but I definitely missed my MPU Speak Your Truth family. How are you all doing? I know things are still I don't know, pretty hectic. I don't know, I can't say that. I know for some things are still pretty hectic, but I'm hoping that for us that things are settling down a bit. There's so much on the horizon and so much to be anxious about, but we don't need to be anxious about anything. We need to just take everything in stride and do what we need to do, like voting. Hello, I'm going to get on you about that, everyone. Every family votes. Every member of every family who can vote needs to vote. This is not the time to play games. This is not the election in which you can play games. Seriously, we have a huge initiative here at the National Parents Union entitled Every Family Votes. If you're interested in being a part of that, if you have a toolkit, we have a toolkit for you to use. You need to become a member of the National Parents Union. I really advocate strongly for everyone who is a parent who has a stake in the life of a child doing well, then this is the organization for you. I know in New York, we're in New York here, that voting registration ends tomorrow, and you need to be registered to vote by tomorrow so that you can vote on November 3rd. So please rally everyone around you. Commit to getting one person to register to vote who is not currently. Each one, reach one. And if we do that, we'll make huge strides. So if you need support with that, again, go to the National Parents Union's website. We have that for you. We also have a town hall coming up. I know I posted it on my page and you'll see it in all of our shows. We have a town hall coming up on November 5th. This town hall is going to be unlike any other. We have the former Secretary of Education, Arnie Duncan. We have our own Marisol Quevedo Rerucha. Rerucha Quevedo. I'll get it right. Marisol. We have our own Bernita Bradley. We have major parents. When I say major, I mean parents that they are advocating not only for their own children and grandchildren, but for the neighborhood's children and grandchildren. They are phenomenal women that I'm honored to work with. And so I invite you all, and I'm sure we'll have other guests because people are registering like crazy. Get in on it. It's worth it. It really is. I think in times like these, it's so important that we have community. We're still in a pandemic. There are still places in the United States that are quarantined, that are still locked down. And so this need for connection is at its height. This is a venue for you, especially with the reimagining of schools, especially with everything that's going on in education as a result of the pandemic, with remote learning, with homeschooling pods. Parents need a place to have their voice. So this is that place. That town hall again is November 5th. Go on the website, register, become a member, and most of all, vote. Okay, that was my opening. I had to make sure I got that out from out the gate early on because it's great to come here and talk and have our meetings, and we love them. We have our conversations, we have our shows. The National Parents Union has produced over 500 shows. Actually, I was just told by our producer before coming on, in a span of a few months. That's phenomenal. In multiple languages as well. So we're about to launch our season 2. Stay tuned for that. Oh, we'll be on a new platform. We have a lot of great things in store. But all of this talk is for naught if we're not going out and voting. That's just what it boils down to. Your vote is your voice. So let your voice be heard, because at the core, that's what Speak Your Truth is about. Get out there, speak your truth by voting your truth, whatever that is. tonight I am honored to have a wonderful guest. I've made so many beautiful friends that I now call sisters as a result of being part of the National Parents Union. And my guest tonight is no different. I met her in January at our convention. So the National Parents Union had a convention in January. I believe the 74th wrote about it. If you haven't read that article, go and read it. It's amazing. Um, this woman traveled from Arkansas. She drove with a crew from Arkansas to New Orleans. I was so impressed by her tenacity just in saying that. And she came in bustling, huffing and puffing, but I'm here. I'm representing. I'll translate. She's speaking in Spanish, English. I was just watching her in awe, like, she's a truth. None other than Judith Yanez. Please come on and join me, sis. I'm honored to have you here tonight. Let's start this conversation. Hi.
Let me unmute myself, and I love you.
I love you too.
That was beautiful.
You are beautiful.
Um,
I was watching you, did you?
I didn't know you were watching. You just do what you do, and thank you for that, because you never know who's watching. And that's one of the things that I do every day is every action, no matter if someone's watching me or not, what am I going to model with that action? And so what you just told me, I walked in there because we were like, oh my God, we're late, we just drove 12 hours and we're late and we didn't want to be late. And so we're in there huffing and puffing, not realize people were watching.
Absolutely. You made an impression on me, because anyone that's going to drive 12 hours and you had a crew with you, that's the thing. So it didn't matter if they didn't have a car, they didn't have a way to get there. You made provisions and you made sure they were there. Many didn't even speak English from what I could tell. And you made sure that they understood that translation. I believe you were the one who brought that up. Like, is there translation going on here? You, Marisol, Christy, I just watched you like, yo, she didn't come here to play. She didn't drive 12 hours to play. That's for sure.
No. And what I remember most about you, which Tim sent me pictures of the convening, and it was beautiful to watch, that we were there, strangers, right? Strangers that united with a common mission. It was beautiful. And now we're like family. But I remember we were coming up with the agreements, I believe. And we're like, why don't we have a Spanish, table? And I wasn't communicating correctly, but you got up and you're like, no, this is what she means. And we need a Spanish table. And I will never forget. And to this day, words often, because as a child, I wasn't allowed to speak up, you're quiet and you never know how to use your voice. So communicating things sometimes clearly and concisely is hard. And since that day, you've helped me concise my voice and make it more powerful. And it's just beautiful to be a part of this with you. So thank you for having me here.
Oh, I feel so good, so warm inside just hearing you say that. This is live and we don't discuss what we're going to talk about beforehand. Honestly, the most I may ask is if there's anything you do not want to talk about, because I don't want to make someone uncomfortable. So this is just sheer authenticity, and it's lovely. Tell us about the work that you've done. I know we have a lot to talk about, and this conversation can go a lot of ways, but I want you to talk about the work that you're doing in Arkansas.
So the work that I'm doing, I'm calling it my calling. I didn't realize that this is what I'd meant to do. It just, they asked me, how did you get to do this work? And I'm like, I just got here. I don't know. And it's my passion, it's my drive, and I'm unstoppable. But what I do, and basically thanks to the National Parent Union, I'm able to concise this better, because when you go through a journey, you sometimes don't have the language to articulate what is the work and why you're doing it. Kind of like we talked about, what is your purpose? what is your outcome and how you're going to measure it, I don't know. This is the way I live life, and this is all I know. And it's basically, I come from once undocumented immigrant parents.
Wow.
They work night and day to provide for us. Weren't engaged in our school other than parent-teacher conferences if they can make it. Siblings were the parents. And this is typical of the majority of immigrant families that come here to work hard. I mean, it's not uncommon. But I say, my education failed me, and what has given me and brought me here is the hard work, the integrity, and the character. And most importantly for my parents, teaching me that let your work speak for itself.
Mm.
Okay. So when you say I walked in and you knew my work, that's what they taught me. It wasn't the content that I learned in school.
Mm-hmm.
So my work basically is giving that power back to the parents. You have natural wisdom for your children. You drive the values, you drive the character, the integrity. That's what kids are going to need. And yes, we need them to know math to be able to perform in society, but it is that resilience that parents teach that gives us, what we're going to become in life, honestly.
And the values that we want our children to have. I think we're sending our children into schools whose values do not represent our own. And then we create value conundrums within our children, not knowing whose values are really going to take root in them and inform who they become as human beings as they grow and mature. And so that's why for me, choice, I used to be very against school choice, to be honest with you. I saw it as a way to drain money from the system, and I was very
Me
wrapped
too.
in,
Me too.
very wrapped up in that mindset until I, as a single mother, was on Section 8 with my two small children. And we found a great apartment to move into. And we live on Long Island, and Long Island is um, the school lines are very drawn along income levels. Redlining is very real. And we know since funding from real estate funds the schools, depending on where you live, depends on the type of education you receive. Found a wonderful apartment, but in a neighborhood in Hempstead that doesn't have a good school system, traditional public school. So now all of a sudden that choice became very real for me. And it was then that I was like, oh, I may have to send my kids to a charter school. And I was very happy for the option to be able to make that choice. Because as a single mother, Section 8 was paying my rent. So that wasn't something I was just willing to give up, and I know so this idea of values, choice is a value, because that's inherent to being a human being. Choice.
Yeah. And so, we work in the realm of choice. I believe parents need to have options for their kids because that exact same thing you're saying, the values and then the culture that an environment creates. Like
Mm-hmm.
I need to align with that to make sure that my kids, back to the integrity and character, the resilience, we need to align with schools that match our values as parents, what we want to teach our kids. And my daughter graduated at a charter school, and the only reason that I switched them is because I went to work at a charter school. Then I saw how they grew as students. That's the only reason that I'm like, wait, what's going on here? Parents are not aware of these options. And of course, I know you're just like me. Like, it's not about us. Like, we're seeing this difference in our children. And then we're like, so why can't other kids have this?
Being a
Um,
who worked in different school systems and different demographics, I saw like, wow, the kids in seventh grade on the North Shore of Long Island are running around with flip cameras, creating videos, so much autonomy and freedom about what they're going to learn and how they're going to produce and should demonstrate what they've learned. And then the kids at 231 in South Jamaica, Queens were like, test, take the test, ready for the test, get the test. And I'm like, something's wrong here. something's wrong here. And in order to get a good education, we had to live in a white neighborhood. Then that came with its own set of issues.
The culture of the school changes, right? Like because of that. And then your kids, there's then the identity issue that your kids feel they don't belong. So it's not about the content, and I am so adamant about this now. It's about how we're creating that identity of the child, and how it is that culture of the school plays a huge part on that. When I was asking around for my own son, because I constantly got emails from teachers saying, he's in trouble, he did this. And I'm like, this is a wise kid that if you talk to him, he understands. So you're telling me all about your environment with your emails. So I switched him to a school, and the first thing I asked, tell me about your process of like students learning from their mistakes. And when they explained it, it matched my values, and I'm like, I'm sold.
Good.
Vivett, this is a completely different child.
Yes.
The kid that I saw at home, environments believe that was that mother that thought my kid was the brightest, right? Like, you know what I mean? You're an educator. Like, she just thinks her kid's so smart, but he's really not. He's just average. No. That kid that I saw at home is the kid that now the world gets to see.
Oh, wow.
The visionary, like the inventor, the social change kid. And we need that for every child. We need kids and environments that are going to promote that kid from growing, but not taking away the power from the parent.
Absolutely. It's supposed to be a marriage. We're together, like same goals, because what we have in common is this child, are these children. That is how I approach teaching. They are call them my kids. They're mine. And so I treat them the way I would want my children's teachers to treat them. And if we function like that, because that's the foundational premise of humanity. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. If you wouldn't yell at your child or want your child's teacher yelling at them, do not yell at my child, please. If there's a problem and you don't understand, call me. That's why I'm here. The communication has to happen. But too often, the communication is only happening your child did this. Email, you did that, it very disconnected, and I've reached out to you 4 times and you haven't, and it's like, okay, think best intentions, maybe there's a reason why they haven't reached out. And not everyone's on point, let's be real. Not every parent's on point. I'm not trying to say that. We're not sugarcoating anything. But at the end of the day, if the parent is not okay, then the school is where the child spends the most time. We need to pick up that slack. We need the funding to, like, that's to me the way it should function. Because when I hear the way people talk about teachers and stuff, it bothers me, but I understand. They're not like, they're not pulling it out of nowhere, you know? We've been there, and we've been there as single mothers.
Yeah, and that's the thing, like, I'm grateful to have been, it's hard being a single mom. Let's say that's honestly hard. I'm grateful for that journey with the work that I'm doing now, because we're breaking barriers at the same time that we're raising kids. Mm-hmm. And we don't have the good and bad cop technique to use. They just have us, and they know us to be raw. And so I just remember so many situations that the schools would not understand. I'm a single mom. Mm-hmm. I was earning a bachelor's and a master's and working as a single mom. How stressful was I? But the one thing that I really learned is to step back and understand the stories of each family. Like, really step back, and from your own perspective, step back from that too. Because most of these teachers, and I was an educator, they're seeing things through their perspective, through like a married couple. That's not who we are as single moms. Our kids only have one parent, So what I did as a single mom with my kids' education was, okay, the school is a tool that I'm going to use. Children, you're independent for your own education. I need you to tell me what you need. So we developed our own system. And when it came to developing issues, like talking about issues at schools, we had our own system. We're going to see this from different angles to see where you need to grow, where I need to grow, what you're seeing in the school, but when I show up to the school, I have your back. Then we go home and we'll discuss it, but I have your back no matter what.
And you tell me the truth. Tell me what is going on. I need to know up front. If you did it, tell me. If you didn't do it, tell me. I need to know because I'm your advocate. I'm there for you. I stand in the gap for you, you
Yep.
know.
Be
But
vulnerable. Yeah.
it's hard to do that when you're like, I got to go to work or I have class or I'm emailing the professor like I'm going to be late because I have to do something for my child. I remember going to, my son was in middle school at the time, and I was advocating for him. He was put in honors English. And I said, well, if he can do honors English, he can do honors social studies because it was, setting him up. I wanted him to have the best options available. And I know my kid, like he can do this. I know what he could and couldn't do. I know the calls that say, oh, if he talked back, he has slick mouth. Yeah, that sounds like him. If you tell me something else, I'm like, well, what happened before that? Anyway, I went to the office and I was sitting there now. This is going back about 10 years, maybe. So I was younger. I went up to the school in my jeans and my Jordans and a hoodie. And, I was no respect. I sat in the office. They walked past me. No one acknowledged me. And so then I was like, oh, they're trying to play me because I don't fit the part. I don't. Honey, I whipped out my legal pad. I started writing. And your name is? And your name is? I've been here since 10:02. The time is now 10:36 and started. They're like, oh, she's a smart Black girl, huh? And then things started changing. And then I was able to but what if you don't have that wherewithal? What if you don't know to do that? They didn't know I was in college, good, like you, bachelor's, master's striving. They didn't know. Why did that matter? A parent was there to address something about her child. That's all you needed to know is school. That's the kind of stuff that we have to go through that I don't think people really, only we get it. It feels that way. It's like a single mama crew. Thank God I'm not a single mother anymore. But I raised my children as one, and I will not forget that trauma. It was traumatic.
It's very traumatic because a lot of times there's something wrong, something's off, but when you live in oppression and poverty, no one teaches you the language to express what you're going through.
Mm-hmm.
You're mad that something went wrong with your child, and being a parent's all emotional. There's no logic to it. You're there to defend your child. But the way you're treated, there needs to be a training for educators to be able to speak with parents.
There needs to be. I thought that's what school was for. I thought that's what it was for, right? That should be part of it. But it doesn't always happen like that, unfortunately. And I've come across many excellent educators in my time. I've been in classrooms, started subbing in 2002. So it's been a while. I've been in my own classroom since 2012. I've come across good, like in everything, there's good and bad. But unfortunately, the bad get more press. And we need to shake things up. Because when I hear parents talking, I'm like, I'm in my own conundrum as parent and teacher in that space. Like, I know what they're talking about.
Yeah, and that's why for me, when I was in the schools, I was drowning because I was seeing all the injustices. I mean, you see them. And, I take everything to heart. And I was like, no, this is drowning me. So now that's why I work with parents.
Mm-hmm.
Because we have to empower them and make them education experts because they are there for their child. They're there to advocate for the child. Mama bear, papa bear, grandma bear, sister bear, they're advocating for that child. And we need them to be experts to make sure that child gets the best quality education.
And lots of times they are trusting the teachers like so much with their child. Really, I found that a lot with my English language learners, that because most parents, when I worked in Westbury, there was a big Latino population there. And the parents were so respectful of me as a teacher. I haven't felt that level of respect from parents since I left that school district. But it was because they were coming from Central America mostly, Mexico, places where teachers are like, not like in America where teachers are, whatever, take them or leave them, respected. And so it was like, that's your teacher. You respect your teacher. Miss, what do you need? Tell us what you need. We're here to help. It's beautiful. Sometimes they couldn't even speak English well. I think that's what helped me to be able to advocate for you. Now that I look back, because I was started to build my acumen, like, okay, this is what they say. This is what they said that, but I'm taking in the body language and the tone, everything, and they're leaning in. I'm like, okay, I think this is what they mean, and start filling in. And with my broken Spanish and their broken English, we started to bond and build, because what we had in common was that child. That was what made us want to work together and want to understand. We need to get back to that.
I often hear, and I'll tell you a quick story. I went to go visit my sister in Portland, and I could tell by the body language this little Asian lady was lost. I can tell. And so I was like, do you need help? And she's like, so I was like, okay, that lets me know you don't speak English. Let's figure this out. And I'm like, just talking with my hands, like ticket. And then they're like, she shows it to me and I'm like, okay, cool. But just using every bit of my body language. So we managed to, she got on my plane. She was on my plane, which was perfect. But then when she came out, I was like, oh, I need to make sure she doesn't get lost again. So we managed to get out and find her son. Both of us not understanding each other. And when she left, the only words she said to me, she went like this, she goes, angel. And I'm like, oh, but that taught me, most people usually say, I need to speak Spanish. And it's not about speaking Spanish. It's about the space you're creating for someone to be vulnerable enough.
Speak heart. Speak heart and speak human. A lot of the things we're fighting for, a lot of what's going on in our world is because we've lost sight of our shared humanity. And we're divided, and we're not tapping into what aligns us and joins us together. The heart. If we're in tune with that and really obedient, right?
You got to be in
You could
tune.
have, yeah, you could at least said, oh, whatever, she doesn't speak, like, you're in America, speak English. No, that's the wrong attitude. Stop. She's trying and she's blessed. As a human being, where's your compassion for that person? Like, come on, at least stop to help. Think, angel.
No, it was beautiful. And I'm grateful for that experience. I was like, oh, yeah. Wow. You're like, if you put duct tape on your mouth, what does your body say?
Well, we're seeing that with the masks, right? We're seeing it with the masks. You could still see the smile or the same thing. Wow.
Good point.
Still seeing it. Yep. I know, right? Epiphany. Oh! So what's going on in Arkansas? Because I know you do a lot of drives, you collect stuff for family, you're doing a lot.
It's a lot of work, right? It's COVID response most of the time, but you have so many things going on. You have COVID response, poultry workers, and then you have the education.
Poultry workers?
So we are headquarters for Tyson, Georgia's here in Springdale, Arkansas. And so you have all these issues going on, and then you have school started. So it was kind of like Vivett explaining it, like waiting for a child to be born and not knowing what to expect. Mm-hmm. Okay, and then we're back at schools, and all these issues are starting to rise up. So we have parents, and here's a I can't speak now, silver lining of all this. These parents were never connected to their child's education in a way to understand what was happening, like going through them learning a math problem or learning how to read. Parents were just coming home and read 20 minutes to the kids.
That was first generation Americans. What's the demographic?
Yeah, first generation Americans. So you have some U.S. citizen kiddos or some that were, the first generation as well. But the silver lining is parents are becoming in tune with the actual learning process, which I love. And it's really hard for me right now because there's so many content areas that the parents need support with. So one of them was child needs help learning how to read. And so what does mom do at home? And then we don't have the infrastructure set up here to support the parent. And so the one thing that I'm saying now, when we say, oh, we do such a good job with parent engagement, is wait, you should have been able to pass that baton to that parent, and that parent should have been able to just effortlessly taught their child at home. So let's examine this now and see how we can support parents and team up with them. And so we are growing in those infrastructures. So we don't have much support in the area for parents at the moment, beyond just the schools. And I truly believe that we need to get infrastructure outside the schools too, because we leave all the power inside of a school building. And like we're noticed now with the pandemic, when you don't have a school building, what do?
That's so true. Wow. I didn't know, I wasn't familiar with poultry workers. I remember hearing on the news at the height of the pandemic, how poultry workers in Tyson's factories really were exposed to COVID-19 at much higher rates than others, and really weren't treated well. And people had to go into work because if they didn't work, they weren't getting paid. And if they didn't get paid, they weren't going to be able to live. And they put their lives at risk, and the companies really weren't doing much to help them.
And the stress that happens in the household watching all this, and then the trauma that is caused on the children watching all this, learning's not happening. So now we need to help families break those cycles or heal from that. So we have a long road ahead, and hopefully we can get that infrastructure set up to support families.
Wonderful. Wonderful. What would you say to parents, as someone who works closely with parents, what would you say to parents who are not receiving the support that they need, whether it be from the school, from their community? Like, where can they go, or what counsel would you provide to them?
I, right now, going back to my own story of my parents teaching me the values of integrity, character, is that we have to use every experience at the moment to teach our kids how to grow through that experience. You know, they have to model something's going wrong, speak about it with your kids about it, but model what it's like to overcome what's going wrong.
Okay.
You know, because right now, any of us, like, I can't learn anything new right now, honestly. I don't know if you can. Like, I can't take anything new. My brain is exhausted. We're tired. And so I think of children and I'm like, are they really learning?
Mm.
And so parents play that big role beyond schools of supporting their kids to become resilient through this. You know, instead of having traumatic experiences, how can we support them to become that resilient person that we need in this world to continue on?
Which is so challenging to do because they themselves are going through their own healing from trauma while enduring trauma. And the whole remote learning, I was just talking with a colleague of mine, and she was like, the kids are not well. They're not the same. They're not bouncing back. And she's been an educator for a while as well. And she's one of the great ones. I call her my edu bestie, Lakeisha Odlum. Shout out, girl. She is an amazing educator. And she's been saying this, the kids are not okay. Like, it's different. It's this, they need help, like mental health support, someone to talk to. So as we're reimagining schools, if anyone's out there listening, which I know you are, tap into the mental health needs of the children, their families, and by proxy, their communities. They needed help before this happened. This didn't just happen because of COVID. They needed help before.
Yeah.
And it's like, it seems like we're going to have to do the work ourselves, which is what the National Parents Union is really doing. Like, you know what? We got to do it ourselves. That's it.
Yeah. And I think, so I never rely on schools
Mm-hmm.
to support my kids. But that's a privilege that I have because I can go and pay for tutoring, you know, and it's like, I think parents, we need to get into that mindset. We can't just solely rely on schools to support our children. And one of the things that I find myself doing, because I can't be at the therapist 24/7, right? You just can't. You can't. But I find myself Googling things, right? Like, what am I feeling? So I just type it in, watch videos. Oh, that doesn't relate. Find the next video until I find something that really, oh, I could validate here. But that's what I find myself doing a lot, because even our friendships are tapped out.
Can be. They can be grateful for new ones, and new ones have formed that maybe weren't as much of a priority before. But I found that too in my own circle, where I've a different group, but a different set now of friends, of sure, they're beyond friends. It's like my sisters, even comadres. I just learned that term, really, like what it means. Is deep, it's beautiful. English doesn't have a word for that. No, it's
There's no.
no word. There's no literal translation for comadre in English, but it's beautiful.
Yeah, and I think through this process, we found our tribe.
Yeah.
Through this pandemic, our ride and dies. I truly believe it's been, I think my privilege is saying it's been a blessing, like it really has been a blessing, if we see it that way. But it's also hard because of the people dying, and but it's a spiritual warfare, if that's true.
Yes, life is a spiritual warfare. This has just made some things, brought some things to the forefront. As I said, that were always there, whether they were lurking in the background or whether they were the elephant in the room that we just weren't addressing. The pandemic has now made it nearly impossible to overlook any longer. You have to address it now. It's a must.
And I want to laugh because I remember when we first started NPU and I was around you, like your presence, you hold us to a high standard. I like it's beautiful. It's beautiful. But, holding someone to a high standard, sometimes there's insecurities within you that you help me navigate. Like, cause you as the writer or the English teacher, I'm like, oh my God, I'm insecure about my writing. Why am I insecure about my writing? So it's a good time to examine our insecurities and where they're coming from, because we're so tired that we have nothing else but to be vulnerable in ourselves.
And that's hard. That's hard.
But it was beautiful, and thank you, because I figured out, where the root came from, and it was an English teacher that had bullied me, so then I was projecting that, when I met you and you held me to that high standard, there was that insecurity and that projection because you were the English teacher. And I was like, this is how this all works.
Yeah. And for those of you watching, really briefly, we were on a committee together, and, I stepped into this role and I did my teacher thing, which can be complicated because this is the National Parents Union. So I was more in my teacher role than in my parent role. And I think that was rubbing some people the wrong way, was bringing up some stuff, but I didn't know that because I'm just, doing what I do, not really so aware. What made me aware was like, I'm not being received well. I know, like, emotionally, my heart was like, girl, they are not feeling you. You need to stop. And I was like, but what happened? What's going on? But then I started to see and go back like, okay, you may be coming on too strong. Like, then we talked, and then that was the part you were just saying. Be vulnerable. Have that difficult conversation. And there are tools for having them. There really are. There's quite a few wonderful books. Actually, Marisol has a book that's coming out. And in that book, it's about healing from trauma. And she has helped me immensely with how to prepare to have difficult conversations. That's a skill right there. That's a training right there that I think we all need, where we can authentically say, like, this is what's going on. I value this. And there are like steps to it. I was never taught that. But that's what you're saying, when you can teach your child like that. That's more important than learning how to write an expository essay right now.
Okay, I'm done. No, but I think I'm grateful for that experience because, you know, we all, when we're doing this work, most of us come from these traumatic experience, past, you know, some past experiences, right? That we never learned how to communicate. We hid, we have barriers, fears, everything. We're hiding all this. And so we're never taught how to have those conversations,
Mm,
or we don't, we're like, we're not feeling right, but we don't know what it is. And so it gets really messy really fast trying to figure it out. Is it me? You know, we're projecting onto each other. But once you get through that,
we got closer. We got
I
closer.
was, I was like, this is my girl, you know, and it was one of the most beautiful lessons in my life. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, we got so much closer. As my husband said, you helped me to see my ugly face. Nobody wants to see their ugly face, but that's the heart work. That's the work. That's the work to get to what did it bring up in me? And then where did that come from? And maybe you have to go to another layer beyond that. Well, where did that come from? And then you start pulling away layers of things that could have been. I brought up something for you that was from grade school,
Second grade.
second grade.
But you know, this is why I'm like, parents, we have to work on our kids, because that was from second grade.
Mhm.
And how that history now developed to me, like hating to write or thinking I'm insecure with my writing, um, that trauma,
Mhm.
you know. So we have to work with it. It's more important than the education they're receiving, I think.
Absolutely. When the pandemic first started and we were thrusted into remote learning, and I was calling homes and just trying to see how's everything going, a lot of parents were saying, I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to teach my child. And I was like, you do know how to teach them. Because what do you do all day? And they're like, I'm cooking, I'm this. I'm like, okay, so teach them your family recipes. Are you making food that perhaps the recipe was passed down, something you grew up eating? That's important knowledge for them. And there's math involved in that, there's English, like there are lessons embedded in all of that. Maybe you could sit down and watch a Disney cartoon together and just have a conversation and see what comes out of that. That's their listening and speaking skills. You might not know the name for it and what you're doing, but you're doing it. And mostly kids want our time. And I know as a former single mother, and many times I still function like a single mother because it's so much a part of who I am. I had children since 21 years of age. So it is a really big part of who I am. They just want time. And if you can just teach them that they're valued, they're important to you, because we give our time to the things that are important to us. Once you teach them that and they feel that confidence, the second grader would have gone away. Because my mom told me, like you said, well, my parents taught me. They might not have been able to speak English well at this, but that didn't matter. They taught me who I am.
You know, and it's interesting from that experience. Mom did go defend me, and she like told that teacher off. But here's the part, and this is, I think, you know, all my behavior patterns that I did with my own children was what I didn't have. And so the part that was missing is discussing with me what happened and then saying, you're capable of writing, you can do this, you know? But if she didn't have that herself, then we're just repeating that cycle with our own kids.
Mm, that's another show, breaking cycles. How do we break these cycles?
Yeah, I mean, unknowingly, and it's no fault of parents, you need to find environments that will uplift you and love you so you can see what that feels like, especially with people that grew up in trauma and neglect. You know, it's hard. We always are going to, our cycles are going to force us to go to those, you know, that comfort zone of neglect. But you need to find those lovable places, as work so hard on yourself, and then you start attracting those environments because your children will need them. You need to break those cycles, and this is beyond education, because sometimes you will find an amazing school that will love you and your children, but Vivett, we know that sometimes that's far and few between.
Mm-hmm. Or they found it in the elementary school, but then the middle school was totally different. And then, all it takes is one or two bad experiences to really derail. That's one of my concerns now. I'm like, where kids are taught to love school, to love learning. Let me say that, not just school, that's a part of learning. That's something that is taught. Yes, you have innate learners who are just curious, shall we say. Many times we drive that out of children, like, mind your business. Why are you so nosy? Why? Don't do that too much, because that's taking away the natural curiosity, which is a key part of learning, intrinsic motivation. But what I am very concerned about is this hybrid, remote, like dangling the string in front of them. One day you're in school, then you're out of school. Then how can they really become balanced people in that kind of environment? You saw kids excited to go back into school, to socialize with their friends, to see their teachers. And then 2 days later, I'm speaking about in New York specifically, 2 days later, the rates went up. So now kids in these neighborhoods have to stay home. And of course, Judith is in the hood. Of course. So how is that fair? How is that right? What is that going to do to kids who just, they're little people? They could check out, like, you know what? I'm over this, off this. I don't want to go to school anymore. That's what
Two,
we're running the risk of.
two words that my kid taught me are respect and dignity. And if
Mm,
you think about that, if you treat families with respect and dignity, you're
mm.
treating them with the highest possible quality.
Can you break those words down for us, please? Respect and dignity. We don't often hear that in the same space as, education.
So a
Talk to
parent, yes, and I've never broken it down, so let me get the word vomit going here. But respect, when they walk in, it's like you're treating your own parents. How do you want your own parents to be treated? Sit down. Let me open my doors to whatever I have to give you what you need. My knowledge. I am going to push myself to the highest level of understanding of education because I know the service that I'm offering you depends on my knowledge. You know, and that's what you would do for family. Like, I am going to treat you with the utmost respect. And the dignity is, yes, they don't speak English. Yes, they might be in poverty. Who cares? Treat them like you would treat yourself. Give them that dignity to have that power and voice, and no matter their circumstances whatsoever. I would treat a rich parent just the same way I would treat one of my lovely parents, because to me they're humble and they see world differently, and that to me is richness, right? Not your money. um, that's as far as I have not broken down those two words, but when I say respect and dignity, it's just like, I'm going to treat you like a dignified human being,
mm.
that you're not going to go beg for food. It's going to be here provided for you. You
And
have the privilege.
that goes back to how we started this conversation with, like, the culture of the school and it matching your own values, because in many cultures they are grounded and rooted in respect and dignity for elders, for people in certain positions, for family units. And so if we're not aware of the culture of the people that we are serving, I'm a public servant as a teacher. I'm there to serve. If we're not in tune with that culture, with the values of the people, not just the child didn't come by itself, their family as well. That to me is where the disconnection happens a lot of times. There's not a true understanding, or better yet, there's no desire to understand. I can't make you want to respect me. Either you do or you don't. And that is the part we're getting something here. I think those of you out here who listen to this, whether live on the replay, really hone down and anchor in on this idea, these ideas of respect and dignity. They're they're just key. They're key.
And he said those words because he got racial profiled by a police officer. Difficult situation for him. And he was writing a college essay about this. And he couldn't finish the last sentence. He's like, I don't know how to finish this up. So I asked him a question. How would you have liked to be treated? And how would you have liked anyone to be treated? And he said the words respect and dignity. And it's harder to describe it, and I don't think you can teach it. But when someone comes into your home, I mean, I grew up in the hood. My food is your food. Like my money is your money. This is community. And going back to that treatment of family, my home, come in, you're in home. Like this is your house. So I don't think you can teach what that is.
Well, I think it's hard to do that when you don't really have a true love for the children and their families who are before you every day. It's not just a job. I think we need to be very clear about that. You cannot just do this for the money or for the summers off or for that's not what this is. You have to have a real love of people and not even just a love for your content. Yes, I love English, but I could have just been a writer then when I wouldn't have had to interact with people so much and still fulfill my love of English and writing, right? Teaching took on I love people. I love to be around people. Like that, you have to have that part. And you're right, they can't teach you that in school. And I never took any coursework in the families you will serve, the students you will serve, how to select where you want to teach, who you want to teach, because that has to match your values too. That's what's happening. It's too much busing going on, busing of teachers into neighborhoods that they don't connect with. Just the same thing with police. You don't connect with them, you don't know them, you're just there, you know.
But we're supposed to be friendly, like.
No, you're supposed to be subservient. That's really what's being said without being said. And you're supposed to be so grateful. And you're supposed to like kiss my butt. And you're like all of that type of innuendos and feelings are all a part of this disconnection where I've heard parents say, I'm not going in that school. I'm not going in that building. You don't want to go in the building with people educating your child? That's kind of scary.
When you said that, one of the things with respect and dignity is that we're equal.
Mm-hmm.
So
You're and you're here. No.
we're equal.
Wow. This has been such an enlightening conversation just to see the flow of how it went from here all over, so organically. Do you have any parting words, things you wanted to share with our viewers or a way to really leave us for this evening?
I think for me, and the title of your show, like it's like stepping up to the microphone and speaking your truth. Like what would you say is your truth? And I think when you show up to schools, you need to show up as yourself. You need to show up for your child, but don't compromise your authenticity to make them comfortable. Just show up like you are. Because everyone needs to treat us equally, and they can't if we're showing up as what they want us to show up as.
And if you're not at a place where you can do that, community comes into play. Find someone who can, whether that's a trusted translator, whether that's a trusted sister, brother, family, whomever it is. If you're not there yet to really share, because it can be scary. It can be scary. I've had parents who, like I say to them, just say it to me in your language because they just need the confidence. They're trying to say it in English or they feel like, I don't really know the words, the whole way the school works. It's a lot. Just be you. Talk to me how you would. Don't worry if I understand or not because I think that levels things out too. I don't know what it is to live somewhere where I don't understand the language and understand people. And I hone in on language because that's such a big equity piece for me, the language. Sometimes put yourself in the position of the other person. Let them flow in Spanish and see how you feel when you don't really understand. You got to listen really hard, right? That's what they're doing all the time.
But you're listening with here and not
Here.
here.
Wow.
That's
Judith.
where the frustration comes in. Yeah.
Yeah, that's and then that's when it turns into, oh, you cursed me out. Oh, you did this. Well, it didn't start there. Other things happen. We have to know that. Other things happen too.
Yep.
Yeah. Wow. Your children are blessed to have you as their mama. That's for sure.
Oh, I'm blessed to have them. They taught me well.
Yeah. I say the same thing with mine. You raised me as much as I've raised you. Definitely. Grew up together. Honored. Oh, sis, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you all for being here with us tonight. This is another episode of the National Parents Union Presents Speak Your Truth. We will not be airing on Monday. It is Indigenous Peoples Day. Get it right, not the other person's day. We don't say that. It's Indigenous Peoples Day. Um, I know for me, I may be going to a reservation that's not too far from where I live to be on the land. Always on the land is their land, and just kind of reconnect with the history that's been omitted, trying to be omitted. And I would admonish you all to, wherever you are, find out about the natives whose land that initially was and really always will be. Tap into that. Let's get grounded. Let's get back to our heart. And I thank you, Judith, for you helping to usher us there. Have a
Thank you.
good evening. Good night.
Good night.
That was a great show, ladies.
Oh my God. Thank you. I loved it.
Oh,
No
that was